Well, I'm here today with Tobias of Avantasia to talk about a paranormal evening with the Moonflower Society. How are you doing today?
I'm absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Talking a lot about the new album. Good reason, good topic. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. And speaking of the new album, let me ask you this: when you're sitting down and getting ready to create an Avantasia record, what is your creative starting point?
Um, I'm constantly writing, I have to say, because writing to me is nothing I do for a certain purpose or a certain album. I capture melodies as I think they just pop up in my head. They just come out as a way to deal with certain things in my life. It's like self-therapy, writing music, and I always have ideas. So at some point, I just decide, okay, now it's time to work on a new album. I get a feeling, and then I go through those ideas that I have already captured, and I sometimes, well, then I become a little more aware of my inspiration, and I capture my ideas that I have from then on, a little more, yeah, with a purpose in the back of my head. So yeah, and then I make demos. I weave those song ideas together, and sometimes I just write songs out of nowhere. It's really difficult because I never overanalyze my working process. It's just there's some point I say, okay, now I'm going to start working on an album. In this case, when I made the decision, the conscious decision to work on the album, it was a pretty sad moment because that was right after COVID had begun to to yeah to put everything to a halt, and yeah, and that's when I said, okay, it's probably a good time to do an album now because I can't do anything else. And I had just built myself a studio, yeah, and then I go in and I start working on music, and I start working, going through those ideas I've captured until then, and sometimes writing some new stuff and making demos, and in this case, making demos from scratch in a very detailed way already, because I had all that time, because there was nothing else to do. I was in lockdown and I had my own studio, and so I made demos really from scratch, but I really got deep into it, and it was a real in-depth way of working and caring a lot for the details that in the past I would have devolved onto others sometimes and my producer. But the moment when my producer heard most of the songs for the first time, pretty much everything was there. Everything was on the demos. Everything was predestined. And yeah, but really the starting point is just pretty much when you say, okay, let's start, let's roll back our sleeves and start working on an album. But that doesn't mean that I haven't done something subconsciously before that.
So, and now that perhaps you've had a little bit of time to look at the work that you've created with this new record, what do you see as the individual fingerprint that this album has that perhaps separates them from its predecessors?
I think there's more duets where more singers sing simultaneously at the same time, where we do harmonies for each other. And whereas in the past it was mostly like one singer would sing his passage, then another one would sing his passage. It was throwing lines back and forth. This time we have songs like Scars and Arabesque and Paper Plane and Kill the Pain Away and Moonflower Society, Inmost Light, many of those songs where we were singing more things together, wrapping our voices around each other, Misplaced Among the Angels, Floor and Me. So it's more, the interaction between the singers is more intense. And also, I think this album is more, every album I've done is personal, I have to say, before that. But I think this album is more personal because, as I said, I was in lockdown. I had just built a new studio. The world began to hibernate because of that stupid virus thing. And we were all in isolation. And I had all the time in the world and pretty much, unfortunately, nothing else to do. Unfortunately or fortunately, I don't really know. It's a bit of both. I had nothing else to do. For the first time in my life, I've been very productive for 20 years, always on the verge of burning out because I was always working a lot. This is my 19th album. I've done 12 or 13 world tours, and I've done all promotion and organizing and management and etc. So for the first time in my life, there was nothing lined up on the horizon. There was no tour, no album release, because the world was screwed and everything was in dire straits, and everybody was busy postponing and changing and abandoning plans. And so I said, okay, I might as well, just hide in my little hideout, in my little shelter, and work. And I rediscovered the joy of making music, as stupid as this may sound, because I always enjoyed making music, but I reconnected to the basics and to the details. And as I said, I did demos, and I did them from scratch, and I made all the details for the demos until somebody else would hear them for the first time. When my co-producer and guitar player and good friend and musical partner in crime, Sasha Pad, heard the songs for the first time, they were pretty much, everything was what it would be. Everything was there. And I also reconnected to singing. In the past decades, I had been so busy. I was singing whenever I needed to sing, for a record or for a tour or a show or a festival. But this time I would sometimes just go into the studio in the morning and start singing Journey songs, as weird as it may sound, and Queensryche songs. And I just discovered the joy of singing again. And I think that shows the voice was rested. And I think this album shows me from a very good side, vocally also. And I sang a lot of choirs on the album, not because I couldn't afford a choir somewhere else, or a gospel choir, a classic choir, a church choir. It was just because I loved doing it. I just did it track by track, like Freddie Mercury, 80 tracks over and over again. And sometimes I would just, delete it in the morning and do the same thing over again, because I felt like, oh, it could be done a bit differently. So there's a lot of myself in that record. And even though, as I said, previous albums have been personal, absolutely, it's always been what I wanted to do. But I think I was involved in so many details that this is very, very close to my heart.
Looking at the design of the record, you mentioned earlier that it's a very organic process for you as far as the starting point is concerned. But once you start putting some songs together, do you then look at what you want the overall design of the album to be, and maybe look at specific songs or creating specific songs to fit in the holes that you have and what the vision for the full-length album is going to sound like?
As disappointing as it may sound, I really don't. I have a vision in a way, but my vision is I know what I want and I know what I don't want, but I really try to let intuition guide me and not make too many plans, because then it becomes a bit stiff maybe, and you run the risk of having something artificially put together, like painting by numbers. So I rather want intuition take over and do things, flying by sight, as you say, in aeronautics and in aeronautics, but you know what I mean, in aero, so I'm doing things as they come, as they pop up, and I'm trying to be spontaneous. So rarely it can happen that I make a decision consciously where I say, okay, for example, good example is on this album, there's a track called Arabesque, which is the longest track on the album. This song was written during the writing session for Moonglow already, but I put it on the back burner because I already had two very good, very long songs on Moonglow, and there was Ghost in the Moon and The Raven Child, and I put Arabesque, which wasn't called Arabesque at the time yet. I put it on the back burner because I thought, why putting 3 overlong songs on one album? So that was a conscious decision. Also, I made a conscious decision. I wrote, or I I tried to arrange the songs and make them a bit shorter this time. That was a conscious decision because I wanted the album to be a bit more brief and not be too long, because my albums have been getting longer and longer, and the songs, at least it felt like they were getting longer and longer. And I realized that when making the set list for the last tour, that you cannot just exchange two songs, because you have this, oh, this is 8.5 minutes. You cannot just include another a song real quick, because you may have a curfew at a festival, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, people want to hear Runaway Train. Yeah, but it's 9 minutes long. Okay, what if we play Savior and the Clockwork? Oh yeah, it's 11 minutes long. And I realized, why can't you just write a short song that doesn't beat around the bush, that hits the nail on the head, just like other songwriting children do as well, just like normal people do. and that's why I really made the decision to throw out anything that was not essential to the nature of the song. In Arabesque, I think everything is needed where it is. But in some songs, I made them a bit shorter, and I said, okay, let's not beat around the bush. Good example, The Inmost Light, 3.5 minutes. I think this is the most quintessential Avantasia / Halloween up-tempo Michael Kiske track that I've ever written. It doesn't beat around the bush. There's no C part and D part and F part in it. It's just a rocket, just, verse, bridge, chorus, solo, a breakdown part, chorus, and that's it. So there are some differences to previous albums, I think.
Do you look at the list of who you're going to have guest singing on the album early on in the stages as you're creating the songs, having already the singers in mind, or does that come a little bit later on in the process?
Sometimes it comes later on in the process. Sometimes you write a song. For example, I wrote The Wicked Rule the Night, and I realized during the process of writing the song, okay, there's not many people who can sing that kind of song. And I immediately thought of Ralph Shapers. He can do it, because I thought he can pull off all those priest things, those extreme painkiller screaming things. But he also has this anthemic Euro power metal voice that is in the that we utilize in the bridge, in that one C part of the song. So it was obvious he would be the perfect singer for that song. Some of the singers, Bob Catley, Eric Martin, Jeff Tate, Michael Kiske, Jorn Lande, Ronnie Atkins, they are members of the family, and they are stables, and they give me a lot of stability. They give me a lot of confidence, and they also give me a lot of options to pretty much cover all different kinds of songs and different kinds of styles that make Avantasia. And that's why it's great to be able to rely and fall back on such a great and strong cast that has given stability to Avantasia in the past. And that's also, they are members of the family, and therefore they give me so much inspiration. When I just think of writing a song for Jeff, it's almost, I have a vocal line and a harmony, and I have Jeff in mind, and in my mind I do that song. I imagine what it sounds like with Jeff, and the funny thing is, it's almost as if I hear it in myself without Jeff even knowing that he's going to sing that song. Way earlier in the process, I can hear something. I can really hear it in my mind, and what I hear, what I imagine it to be, is not so far and not so different from what it's going to be like in the end. So that's it feels great to be working with those people that I've worked with before. Of course, sometimes you write something and sometimes you have an idea even before the record. Before I wrote the songs for Floor, I had the idea I should work with Floor because she's an amazing singer and she caught my attention, and she's been the best thing that could have happened to Nightwish. And I thought, she's a great singer, and Sasha confirmed it because he had produced the earlier records of Floor's previous band After Forever. So I sent her a song that was not actually written for her. Misplaced Among the Angels, that was written with anybody in mind specifically. So I sent her the song. She said, well, Toby, it's not bad. It's a good song, but I'm not sure it's exactly my range. I usually sing a bit higher than this. So I said, okay, never mind. I'm going to write something for you. And I wrote Kill the Pain Away with her in mind. And she heard that track and she said, okay, that's exactly what I want to do. Great. And a couple of weeks later, she got back to me and she said, okay, I've recorded it in my own studio. And Toby, by the way, I checked the other song again and I tried it. And it really worked well with my voice. So I sang them both. And so there's never, what I want to say is there's never a rule without an exception.
That is an incredible story. Now, when you putting these songs together, has anybody ever came back to you and added maybe a little piece of their own into a song, or when you bring them in, you're just really looking for their vocal performance, you've done all the homework?
Usually they do pretty much exactly what I suggest, and I don't take that as a lack of a bravado of the individual singers, but I take it as a compliment for how great I can imagine how their voice works on the album. Sometimes I think, I remember that Jorn, when we first worked together, we worked on The Scarecrow. That was the first track we did together. And he was in the studio. We were both in the same studio, and he started, I played him the song originally as I had it in mind. And he listened to it and he said with his Norwegian accent that you don't hear when he's singing, but when he's talking, which is really cute and funny. He said, no, Toby, I don't sing like that. And I said, okay, let me try something. And he turned it completely upside down and he did like a first take. He was just standing behind the microphone, let me try something else. He had just heard the song for the first time 10 minutes before. And he was just going through it and you could see his brain was working and he was imagining something. And then he sang something completely different and we left it from the first take that he had recorded. It's he's a freak of nature. So that was, I think, the most he had changed. The others are really, most of the time it turns out to be what I have in mind.
Do you have any person out there that you haven't worked with as a vocalist on a record that you would love to have perhaps on the next Avantasia album?
Oh yeah, but I would love to work with Blackie Lawless or Paul Stanley. I love Paul Stanley as an artist. He's amazing. What a frontman! What an artist! What a songwriter! What a personality! I know some people would say, okay, he doesn't exactly sound like he was 22. He's 22. Well, who sounds like you're 22 when you're in your 70s? Still, he's been in the trenches for 50 years and he's been there and he's fucking Paul Stanley. So I love him. I love his voice. Bruce Dickinson, obviously, but I've asked him a couple of times, and Rod Smallwood, a nice guy. His manager, he's very protective of Bruce and Iron Maiden, and he says, Toby, it won't happen because Bruce he has to focus on Iron Maiden and doing his spoken words tours and his solo stuff, and he's got a lot of stuff on his schedule, so I understand it. So, but honestly speaking, I don't really have a bucket list, because bucket lists, to me, it would seem greedy to have a bucket list, because I have been granted more than I could have ever dreamed of. This is my 19th album, and I've toured the world with 12 of them, and or 13 even. And I've headlined Wacken Open Air, the biggest heavy metal festival in Europe, several times, and I've gold discs, and I've been granted more than I could have imagined, and that's why I feel a bucket list would be. I think I should be a little more modest than and so it wouldn't be appropriate or opportune to have a bucket list.
One last question for you, and that is perhaps a little bit of a difficult one, because when you put a record together, all of these songs have a special meaning to you. but do you have a maybe not a favorite song, but a song that you're more excited than others perhaps to perform it live?
I love, it's really, it changes a lot. And, you always have those phases, but one song I'm extraordinarily proud of because I think it's been an album highlight. It's not off of this record, but out of our catalog, I'm really, really proud of. We didn't play it on the last tour, but it's Ghost in the Moon, the opening track off of Moonglow, because I think it's such a strong song and I'm so proud. I've been singing it myself also, and going on stage singing that song. We used it as the opening track on the Moonglow tour. That was an amazing feeling, 10 minutes just in, leading people into the world, or dragging people into the world of Avantasia with that song. That was magical, and I really enjoyed singing that. So, but I could name every time I hear the intro of the Scarecrow live on stage, it gives me goosebumps because not only because I think it's a very, very well arranged and well written song, but also because I know the fans will go crazy as soon as this intro starts, and fans go crazy. They love that song, and so I love them all. I love them all. It's a stupid cliche, but everybody says that all songs are like my children, and I know it sounds cheesy, but in a way, that's it. They're all my brain children, and I love them all. There's special stories and memories and nostalgia attached to each of them.
Well, Tobias, I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and talk to me today. I really appreciate it. I'm going to wish you the best of luck with this release. Incredible record, A Paranormal Evening with the Moonflower Society, perhaps the longest title of any Avantasia record to date.
Yeah.
But I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that you took the time to speak with me. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for spreading the word, and the pleasure was all mine. Thank you.
Take care. All the best.
Take care. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.